Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Tuesday Times Roundtable. Today's topic is Your Voice Matters, a guide to an informed voting. So my name is Janeri Mendoza Farjan, and I am the Senior Program Coordinator here at the Office of Global Learning Initiatives. These TTR sessions, they serve as a discussion so we can have a conversation about global trends and issues. If you would like to kind of learn more about TTR and watch the past recordings, you may go to our website. We have it in go.fiu.edu/TTR. If you didn't get a chance to sign in when you walked in, this QR code is going to take you straight to the sign in for today's session. Either if you're here for Global Learning Medallion points, Honors College, extra credit, or just visiting us, we are glad that you're here today. Also, throughout the presentation, we are going to be having microphones. They're going to be available around the room. Connie, our assistant director, and also one of the graduate assistants, Natalia, they're going to be having the mics. Just make sure that you raise your hand, wait for the microphone to arrive, so that way we can capture your contributions in the recording. Our Tuesday Times Roundtables, we like to connect them to a New York Times article. So everyone at FIU gets a free subscription to the New York Times online. So you may either get one of the flyers or just go to the website to get your free subscription. And today's session's article, it is at go.fiu.edu/TTR 1022. Also, we connect the Tuesday Times Roundtable to the Sustainable Development Goals. For today's session, it is goal number 16 on peace, justice, and strong contributions by promoting inclusive societies. We're very excited about the session for today just because it kind of connects into our elections. We're going to be having the elections in 2 weeks, so it's very exciting to have this kind of session. Global Learning Medallions, please make sure that you do a screenshot of your signing. And if you would like to learn more about TTR and also all the initiatives that we have in the Office of Global Learning, including the Peace Corps Prep Program, Global Learning Medallion, scholarships and fellowships, you may visit the table at the front or also follow us on Instagram where we put a lot of our information as well. All right, so now it is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Monica Bustinza. She is the director, the Democracy Programs Director for Engage Florida in Miami. And then in her role, she manages the organization's voter registration and Get Out the Vote programs. Monica also has an active member in the League of Women Voters in Miami-Dade County since 2014 and is currently the member of the board of directors for the League of Women Voters of South Florida. In addition to her work with Engage and the League, Monica also holds a PhD in the Department of Public Policy and Administration from Florida International University. Her research focuses on various aspects of election administration, including local policy implementation, discretion, emotional labor, and voter participation. And before her graduate studies, Monica earned her Associate's in Arts in Miami-Dade Honors College in 2015, followed by a Bachelor's in Arts in Political Science from the University of Miami in 2017. And her journey towards obtaining her doctoral degree, she successfully completed a master's degree in public administration. So please help me welcoming Dr. Bustinza.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm going to switch. Yeah. Take it out. Alrighty, thanks for the introduction and thanks everyone for joining me today. True honor to be here and back at my alma mater, Go Panthers. But yes, my name is Monica Bustinza, Dr. Monica Bustinza. Since I'm in the academic setting right now, I can use the PhD, right? But anyways, for those of you that are not familiar with Engage, we are all things building civic power amongst young people between the ages of 18 to 35. How many of you have seen our logo somewhere on campus? Yes, I hope we assisted some of you to register to vote. Since January, we've registered over 2,600 Panthers to vote, so very proud of that. And we've held so many events here on campus. So I was actually here yesterday doing another type of presentation, but happy to be here and thanks everyone for joining. Just a quick show of hands, has anyone casted their ballot yet? No? Oh, you did? Cool. On campus?
No. Online.
Online? Oh, gotcha.
Not online, but like
By mail? Cool, cool. What about you?
by email.
By mail as well. So fun fact for those of you that are vote by mail voters, you can actually drop off your ballot here on campus. There's secure ballot intake stations that you can give it to the poll worker and they will, if you have your ID on you, they'll stamp it to verify who you say you are, and then you could track the status online. Don't know if you know that. So that's something cool about vote by mail. But nonetheless, just a quick overview of what I'll be discussing. Number one, youth participation. I'll go over voter registration. Oh, it's not sharing. That's silly. I'll go over voter registration, methods of voting. So for those of you that haven't casted your ballot yet, we're going to make sure you've got a plan to vote. And if you are ineligible to vote, I hope that you empower your peers, your loved ones, neighbors to cast their ballot. Beautiful, yeah. Thank you. Yes, so first and foremost, let's talk about youth voter turnout. So how many of you think that voter turnout for young people for local elections is over 10%? Over? For local elections. I would hope so too, but it's actually 2%. Less than 2%, yeah. For presidential election years, you'll obviously that number increase, and same thing for midterm elections. But youth turnout does vary by state and by county. Go ahead.
Sorry, hi. Could you clarify what age as like youth voters?
18 to 35.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, yes. So electoral turnout does depend on where you live. It does vary because context does matter, right? And I'll show some of the institutional barriers that impact someone's ability to cast their ballot. But it does, it is shaped by, for example, age, education. There's also some correlation between a mother's education and a child's likelihood to cast their ballot. There's also correlations between, how many early voting sites there might be available. So there's a bunch of criterias or attributes that help shape someone's ability to cast their ballot. But historically, young people do turn out at lower rates than older folks. So in 2020, there was approximately a rate of registered students that hit record levels of 80%. So 80% of young people on college campuses registered to vote, and it was 69% in 2016. Now, when we look at demographics between gender, we see that women do turn out at larger rates than men. And when we look at the breakdown for multiracial women and Black women, you'll see 66%, 69%. So we do see that women do register at higher rates, and we vote at higher rates compared to men. So some of the barriers that impact someone's ability to cast their ballot is, for example, age. So I did share, some of the statistic on age, but also income, race, ethnicity, education, of course, insufficient knowledge about elections. There's not much information that's being shared about elections, awareness, and then there's obviously those legal and institutional factors, right? So voter registration, yes, Engage was here registering young people to vote since January almost every day, but not every campus has an Engage, that's able to register people throughout the entire year. Eligibility, right? So if you recently moved to Florida and you missed a cutoff date, a deadline to register to vote, unfortunately, that impacts someone's ability. Anyone here not from Florida? Yes, where are you from? Switzerland.
Hungary.
Gotcha. And what are the age? At what age can you register to vote? Near 18? Same 18? Cool. Yeah, so here in the state of Florida, you can pre-register at 16, and on your 18th birthday, you'll get your voter information card. But the big thing here to note, all in all, is like, yes, you can pre-register. Yes, you can, register to vote on your 18th birthday. But if you miss a 29-day cutoff, you're unable to participate in the election. So that's one of the barriers. Same thing with legislative changes. Things are always changing in elections, unfortunately. But anyway, so how do we participate in our electorate? So I briefly spoke about registering to vote. So yes, in the state of Florida, you've got to register to vote 29 days before the election. This date was actually October 7th. So for folks that recently moved to Florida, were unable to, register, unfortunately. You do have to be a citizen, 16 years of age or older, and you've got to provide a form of identification. I did provide for all of you, if you see it. So for those of you that are interested in knowing what kind of ID you need to cast your ballot, this is a free tool from Vote Riders that allows you to know what exactly you need to cast your ballot. So FIU serves as an early voting site. So if you want to cast your ballot on campus, just make sure you have an ID on you. So in the state of Florida, some folks did share what their preferred method of casting their ballot. By mail, we have 3 methods: by mail, in person, early, and on election day. Anyone wait till election day to cast their ballot? No? Listen, I've given these talks before, and there are folks that are like, I wait till election day. And I was like, we just came from 2 storms. 2 storms. Imagine if one comes the day before election. Are you really going to go in your car and go cast your ballot, or are you going to be like, ooh, the weather? So I'm like, folks, let's make a plan. Vote now, right now, because it's the period of early voting. And then early is my preferred. I voted here before with my family. My husband was a student here too, so we would vote together on campus. But go ahead.
I always have the question of, if you vote early, how are those votes secure? How do we know that those votes are secure? You know what I mean? I always have that question. I always vote here at FIU early because I don't want anything to happen and I won't be able to vote.
Yeah.
But how are they secure?
Yes, so first and foremost, they are secured. Now I'm going to give you an answer though, okay? But they are secured. In the state of Florida, we use a equipment that's called the DS200. So when you go vote, do they give you a ballot? Yes, it's printed. What do you do with it? You mark it, and then you feed it into a machine, right? So you have paper proof, and there's a digital proof, okay? Now, whatever happens to your paper ballot, yes, it does get secured. It gets locked at the end of early voting. It gets taken to the supervisor of elections office. They are protected. They have serial, like barcodes that match where it came from, who casted that ballot. But in addition to the actual physical form, that voting equipment also tabulated your vote already. You see? So at the end of early voting, all the results get pushed, like using like their wireless technological stuff that is then put into another system, and everyone's vote is tabulated.
And they're secured by hackers and everything.
Absolutely. They're not even connected to Wi-Fi. They have their own systems. Yeah, so there's a lot of, malinformation out there, unfortunately, in terms of elections. I will say, and I don't want to make this like a lecture about election administration, that is my area of research, but I will share that our election system in the United States is referred to as decentralized, with jurisdictions and counties responsible for administering elections. So one county may have 1,000, 2,000 voters, and then there are some, like Miami-Dade, that are huge. So when folks are like, well, what happens if 2,000 votes get lost? I'm like, that first and foremost, that's not going to happen. And secondly, for presidential elections, 2,000 votes isn't going to impact the outcome of an election. Now, for local elections, absolutely. You know, every vote counts. When I gave you some of the stats on local elections, you see that turnout is 2,000 people, and young people make up 2% of that. So, yeah.
Sorry. About the early voting, by in person is fine, but where like we mailed through the post office or my post box, what is the guarantee it will be going to the proper place and will be voted? Because it is going through the person, right? We trust the person, but if person can want, even if she can destroy it.
Yeah. No, I hear you. So first,
Thanks.
didn't I give you all the example that you can track your ballot online? Yes. So once they receive your ballot, they scan it, and you will see like counted, processed. You'll see the whole process, and it'll show you where it is in the process. And I actually have a QR code that you can scan to take a look at that. So we do have like those procedures in place that allow folks to, know, okay, what part of the, vote by mail scanning processing is my ballot in.
You are right. Now if I check, it is not on online. So how do I know? Then what I have to do? Suppose I saw it is not
Yeah, the next step, my recommendation, instead of requesting another one, I would vote early. And I would come in and say, hey, I casted my ballot, using the vote by mail process. I don't see my ballot processed or anything. Cancel that
Thank
one,
you.
and I'm going to vote in person now. Because you don't want to double vote either, It's a felony.
Yeah, so I have a question with that too. So I had an address change earlier this year, and I was actually going to change it back to a Broward address. I got my early voting vote by mail sent to my Broward address. I filled that out. I submitted it. My whole family voted. Then I noticed that at my dad's place, which is in Miami, I got my voter ID sent for his address. I checked online to one of those websites, and it said that I'm not registered to vote in Broward when I put in my identification information on the ballot that I was sent to the Broward address.
Gotcha. So what ends up happening is that, so you're registered to vote in Broward first. Then you registered to vote in Miami.
I have no clue which came first because I was sent both almost in tandem. The beginning of this year, there was an address change of mine.
But county though, it's not
But
within.
county, but
Okay,
county,
yeah,
but county.
that's an important thing, specifically because our elections are administered at the county level. So we register to vote at the county level, and we've got to do early voting, vote by mail in the county you are registered to vote in. So that's one. So you're registered to vote in Miami.
However, I was sent an early voting address with all my information, my name, everything, to the Broward address. I had completed and filled that out and submitted it before I knew that I had a voter ID.
And you have two addresses?
Two addresses, yes.
Yeah,
because I
so
go
what's going to
between
end up
households.
happening is that you have to pick one or the other. You can't obviously double vote.
However, yeah, exactly. So that's the thing is I had finished the Broward application, but it says that I went to that website actually. There was a John Oliver episode not too recently that
Yes, I saw it.
And I went to the website. We put all my family's information. We saw that all their ballots were checked, and we checked mine, and it showed that I'm not registered to vote in Broward. However, I had already submitted that ballot. So I don't want to vote twice, but I also want my vote to count and matter.
Yeah, absolutely. So my recommendation first is to call the Broward County Supervisor of Elections and let them know, hey, I went on the system and it says I'm not registered to vote here. However, you all sent me a ballot and I, updated it. Because what tends to happen is if you have an address change and vote by mail ballots were already mailed, you're going to get wherever you requested first. Now, if you did an update address change, it'll trigger internally in the system that you're no longer a registered voter in that county. So that's where it becomes a little tricky. So my recommendation, call the SOE in Broward explain your situation so that they can then tell you, all right, we're going to count this one or not. Because if the address change was Miami-Dade, then you should be voting here, not there. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, of course. And we could talk after too. But yeah, we've got 3 methods of voting here. Anyone not like from another country, but not from Florida too? Like anyone live in another state before? No, just Floridians in the room. Yeah, so something that's very interesting too about our election system is that, states determine what methods of voting are offered to voters. So in some states, you do have to provide an excuse to vote early or by mail. And here, you can request whatever preferred method you'd like. So in terms of vote by mail, in lieu of, speaking of vote by mail, so you've got to request your vote by mail request online, in person, or by phone. Very important here is the deadline to request your vote by mail ballot is this Thursday. This Thursday by 5 p.m. If you miss that deadline, you cannot request a vote by mail ballot. You will not get one. Something huge about Florida and our legislative session and election administration is for the past 4 legislative sessions, we have had changes to our election system. One of the bigger ones came from Senate Bill 524, which expired everyone's vote by mail. So anyone that used to previously get their vote by mail in their home no longer started getting them, so you had to re-enroll in vote by mail. Huge thing here is December of this year, they'll expire again. So it's every 2 years. So something to keep in mind when we talk about those institutional legal barriers that impact someone's ability to cast their ballot. So if you're not like a Monica or have a friend like Monica, or you don't follow the supervisor of elections on social media, you miss out on these things, and it's important to note. Also, for vote by mail, you've got to request it by Thursday, 5 p.m., so there is a time cutoff too. Now, to request your vote by mail ballot, you do need 2 forms of identification. It's basically whatever you used to register to vote. Because I've got friends of mine that are like, but Monica, I requested a vote by mail and it was rejected. And I'm like, okay, it was probably rejected because they had the wrong, or you provided one ID over the other. So my rec is provide both so you don't get a rejection. In addition to that, returning your vote by mail. So something that the state of Florida has is called a canvassing board. And it's basically run by a legal team in the county as well as our supervisor of elections. And they review all ballots that are rejected. Now, some of the rejections for vote by mail come from people forgetting to sign the outside of their ballot. So you get an envelope, so the folks that did the vote by mail, if you don't sign the back, it's automatically rejected. Folks that do use vote by mail can cure the ballot once they get notified, but you've got to be with it, look at the notification, give them the correct ID and all that. In addition to that, something that's important to note is if the supervisor of elections does not have your vote by mail ballot, by 7 p.m. on election day, it's an automatic rejection. So those are things that, you might say, hey, well, it was postmarked. I put it in the mail on the Friday before election day. If it doesn't arrive in their hands by 7 p.m. election day, it's an automatic rejection. So my recommendation, if by 5 days before the election you still have your vote by mail ballot, just drop it off at an early voting site. So here's the vote by mail request. It'll take you directly to the county website for you to request your vote by mail. Early voting, not gonna lie, my preferred method of voting. It's also easy if you're a student, you're already here. Before class, after class, lunch break. If you're an employee here, that 30-minute lunch break or however much time is allocated to your lunch, you can go cast your ballot at the student SASC. Thank you. I got the acronym, but couldn't say anything beyond that. But you do have to provide an ID. So take a look at the little paper card from Vote Riders that I shared with all of you. And then hours of operation do vary. Now, something that's great about presidential elections is that we know there's going to be a high volume of voters coming out to cast their ballot. So actually, it's open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day. So something to be mindful of. But if it was a primary election, if it was a local election, it's important to mind that the days may vary, the times may vary. General election. So here's the schedule. You'll see FIU listed there. Early voting did begin yesterday. Yesterday was Monday, right? I've been in the trenches in these elections. I'm tired. But yes, Monday was yesterday. And early voting did begin, and it ends on the Sunday before Election Day, which is November 3rd. And by the way, for folks in the room that haven't casted their ballot yet, I did provide some sample ballots from the county, if you're a Miami-Dade voter, for you to take a look at. And the schedule's on there. So for folks that are, I would say, fearless, that are not afraid of perhaps waiting in line or in the rain, there's Election Day voting. Now, something about Election Day that's very important to uplift is that we vote at the precinct level. So on Election Day, your only choice for casting your ballot is at your assigned precinct. So it may be a library, it may be a school near you. If you go online in the next slide, in the next few slides, I'll have a QR code for you all to check your voter information, and it'll show you a picture as to where exactly you can vote. So for me, for example, it's at a local school, and it shows you where to park and all that kind of stuff. Now, if you do not go to your designated polling location, the poll deputy, the person that greets you at the front that says, hey, have your ID out, that kind of stuff, they may tell you you're in the wrong spot and you got to go elsewhere. Now, I know that folks may be like, well, no, I can vote here. I personally would recommend that you listen to the poll worker, specifically because we vote again at the precinct level, and we got to make sure you get the right ballot. With early voting, there's these beautiful equipments called ballot on demand, and the poll workers can print anyone's ballot. That's why early voting exists. It's expensive, so please take advantage of it because we don't want to lose our early voting site at FIU. So here is a timeline, which has the wrong date for the early voting period. My apologies. It's November 3rd, not the 2nd. So book closing is October 7th. That was 2 Mondays ago, I think. The deadline to request your vote by mail ballot is this Thursday again. The early voting period began October 21st and ends the 3rd, not the 2nd. And Election Day is the 5th. I would say text this to 5 people, but I have the wrong date on there, so don't do that. We don't want to spread misinformation. So here is the QR code that I was referring to for folks in the room that are Miami-Dade voters. Please feel free to scan the QR code and input your information, and then it'll show you if you're an active registered voter, when you registered, your voter information card number. You could request your vote by mail ballot. You can see your customizable vote by mail ballot as well. What else can you see? A picture of where you need to go vote on Election Day. So it's helpful because for some folks, because how many of you have heard of the census? So we have the census, and then there's redistricting. Now, for voting, it's called re-precincting. So some folks may have had their polling location changed. So that's why that picture is helpful, so that you know, oh, this is the place, kind of thing. So this year, what's on the ballot? Does anyone know? Beyond the president? Well, we've got U.S. President on there. We've got U.S. Senator, one of 2. We've got the House of Representatives. We've got state senators, only odd districts. We got state reps. We have 6 constitutional amendments. Good news. I'll be going over some of them for you briefly. We also have local elections as well, but I want to flag this is if applicable, depending on where you live. So I live in the town of Miami Lakes, so my mayor is on the ballot, but you may not see a mayor on yours, so I want to flag that for you all. We do have county commissioner as well, but if you live in District 7, that's why it's hard sometimes to do these decoding the ballots, because everyone may have different folks, on their ballot. We also have school board, which came from the August primary. This August primary, we had some nonpartisan races on the ballot. Mayor was one of them, as well as our school board races. Unfortunately, Districts 3 and 7 did not get high turnout for one candidate, so they're on a runoff. We also have one county non-binding question in Miami-Dade, as well as community council persons and municipal referendums. Anyone live here in Doral? Yeah, Doral. You all have a lot of stuff to vote on over there. You've got questions about budgets, people's positions. I was like, whoa, thank God I don't live in Doral. But yes, you all have a lengthy ballot in comparison to other municipalities. So to kick us off in terms of the statewide ballot measures, because everybody guaranteed if you're a Floridian and you're a registered voter here, you have 6 statewide ballot measures on the ballot. So for folks that already casted your ballot, I'm almost certain you already saw some of this, but as of May 16th, we have 6 statewide ballot measures. 4 of them did come from the Florida legislature. This is very important to note because 4 came from the 4 came from the Florida legislature and 2 came from the petition process. So how many folks saw petitioners on campus? Yep, folks with clipboards and stuff. So 4 did come again from the Florida legislature. They had a 60% vote in both the Florida Senate and the Florida House. And then 2 of the initiatives came from the petitions. That's Amendment 3 and 4. 3 is the legalization of medical marijuana. Recreational marijuana, And Amendment 4 is providing a constitutional right to an abortion. For all of these amendments, all 6, we need a 60% supermajority. A lot of people to vote, yes or no. So for it to get approved, 60% of voters need to vote yes. And if you want complete ballot language, you can scan the QR code.
So I have a question.
Yes.
If this is below 60%, does it mean amendment will be done again or?
Done.
Or done?
We're done. Until the petition process again or the Florida legislature.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that's a good question because I had a few students ask me yesterday and while I've given these presentations and they're like, well, I don't like blank amendment. It needs to be fixed in this way and this way. And I'm like, right now it's you're in or you're out. Because if you're not in and you want to be nitty gritty about every line and stuff, we won't see it on the ballot again in 4 years, 2 years, 6 years, heck, who knows. So that's important to know. Yeah.
This is kind of an unrelated question, but since you've seen voting change over the past few years, and especially with COVID going on and, the new developments of mail-in ballots, do you think that in the future we would have is there a possibility for remote voting the same way that we do exams with honor lock and lockdown browsers? Do you think it's possible for legislation in the future to allow for completely remote voting processes, or do you think that it's likely not going to be happening?
I'm a dreamer. I'm the kind of girl that's shoot for the moon, land on the stars, land on the moon, land wherever you land type of style. However, we live in such a diverse country. We live also, in the state of Florida, which also shapes the way elections are administered. I'm not entirely sure we have the technology so that everyone feels confident. We even had an example, not to point at you, but I'm like, we have paper. You have the paper, you're feeding it into a system, and people are still skeptical. You know what I mean? Even, are you sure it got counted? I've seen it. I've served as a poll worker. Are you sure? I'm like, yes. 1 of blank votes counted. That's you. Now this is the next person. So that's. I think it's more of the people need to believe. And even with paper and even audits and even, certifying results and having logic and accuracy, testing the equipment, people are still like, fraud.
And additionally, for those, since we had a talk last week here about different kinds of disabilities, are there different accessibility levels for like ballots? For instance, if somebody was like having low vision or was like legally blind, do all poll locations provide alternatives like Braille paper, or do you have to call in and find a polling location that specifically provides?
Great question, and this is like my area that I really want to specialize in the future, so thank you. All polling locations by law need to be ADA compliant, so there must be a ramp, there must be designated parking spots for folks with disabilities. So that's part one. Part two is that every voting location has an ADA compliant voting equipment, and it's called Express Vote. So depending on what your disability is and what your needs are is what the equipment will give you. So it'll speak it to you, it'll have the correct lighting, at those visual impairments, if any. In addition to that, there's also a vote by mail tool that folks with disabilities can use. It's called Accessible Vote by Mail. And basically your ballot is emailed to you so that you can upload it in your preferred readable tool, which is cool. But the thing is then folks need to print it and then mail it. So we still have a long way to go when it comes to, voting with a disability in the state of Florida, and actually just as a country. So, but thank you. I love the question. Yes.
So my question is kind of something regarding that. I don't know how to phrase it so that it's respectful, but is everyone allowed to register to vote even if they are mentally disabled?
Yeah, so there is, if you are medically or deemed unfit to vote, you're not eligible to vote.
So what would that be? Like, who would deem you to?
A medical physician.
Okay.
And then that is then put into a record. I think it's via the clerk of courts, and they communicate that information with the supervisor of elections when you're trying to register to vote. Yeah. Any questions? Yes. No?
Hi. So I live in Volusia County. Originally, that's like 4 hours away in Central Florida. And I didn't realize that you had to, because I come here for school, I didn't realize you had to change your address when you vote. So I believe my mom said I requested a mail-in ballot, but it went to my house. So is it possible for her to mail it to me and then I fill it in and then mail it back? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, for folks in the room, because you're not alone, I speak to many folks that don't know that either. Yes, you can register, at your home location. If you do plan on being here for the next 4 years, you may want to consider updating, your address to wherever you live here so that you participate in the local politics here. But if home is home for you and you follow the politics there and you're comfortable with that, I would encourage you to continue voting, in Volusia County. And then in terms of the request, so when you put in your request, it has to be at that county as well. So you've got to put in your request by Thursday.
Okay.
And then what you'll do is that you can either put your parent, your guardian's address, or you can put your mailing address as here and it'll come here. It's really dependent on how confident you feel about it arriving on time. If you think that your parent, mailing it to you overnight via FedEx is better, do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. Great question. Any other lingering questions? Not yet? Okay. So we have Amendment 1, which is to make our school board elections partisan. Anyone in the room want to read the summary for me? Because I feel like I'm the only one talking. Yes.
proposing amendments to the state constitution to require members of a district school board to be elected in a partisan election rather than a nonpartisan election, and to specify that the amendment only applies to elections held on or after November 2026 general election. However, partisan primary elections may occur before the 2026 general election for purposes of nominating the political party candidates for the office for parliament for on the 2026 general election ballot.
Awesome, thank you. Yes, so for this one, a vote yes would change school board elections to be partisan, and a vote no would keep school board elections nonpartisan. So currently, our school board elections are nonpartisan, meaning you will not see an R or a D next to someone's name. It's a nonpartisan race. A vote yes for this one would make them partisan, and you would then see the candidate's political party. Of course, there are many arguments for or against it, so I encourage all of you to, read a little more. But, for some folks, they're like, why do our school board elections need to be partisan? What does it matter? What a person's party affiliation is, especially when they're running our school board. Some folks are like, well, it'll lead to more transparency. So it's really dependent on how, you feel, you think, and where your values are. But yeah, this one came from the Florida legislator. In addition to that, I'm trying to see what else is important here. We do have a large percentage of voters that are non-party affiliated, so they wouldn't be able to participate in primary elections. So it would basically go from the political parties and then to the general election, and that's where everyone would be able to vote. Now, where it becomes a little challenging is if you live in a supermajority Republican or Democrat district. Someone from another party may never had the shot to run for office because of the political ID. Yeah. Number 2, Amendment 2, which is the right to hunt and fish. Anyone want to read that one out loud for me? Yay, thank you.
Okay, it says proposing an amendment to the state constitution to preserve forever fishing and hunting, including by the use of traditional methods as a public right and preferred means of responsibly managing and controlling fish and wildlife, specifies that the amendment does not limit the authority granted to the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission under section of the Article 4 of the state constitution.
Beautiful, thank you. So a vote yes for this one would establish a state constitutional right to hunt and fish regardless of homeland. So very important, regardless of homeland. So whether you're a Floridian or not, you've got the right to hunt and fish. A vote no does not establish a state constitutional right to hunt and fish and preserves the right to hunt and fish. So this one got a lot of hunting and fishing and this and that. It's a little confusing. Go ahead.
So would that include endangered species? Like, could they fish for any kind of fish?
Yeah, so the big problem here, and that's why there's a lot of conservation groups that are, really encouraging folks to vote no on this one, is because right now we have current regulations that are for hunting and fishing. Like how many of you have heard of the catch and release and that kind of stuff? So what will end up happening is in the future, if there's an issue with a particular species, the likelihood of it being regulated is significantly lower if this passes. So yeah, go ahead. That's beyond, the scope of the presentation, but really deers, it could be any type of, animals. Yeah. What raises a few flags for this one too is the conversation of private property. It loosens some of the regulations as to where people can't hunt and fish. Now the thing here too is that it's creating a lot of confusion because you have folks that do these things for recreational purposes and they're like, but I don't want you to take away my right to hunt and fish. No, that's not what we're trying to do here. Everyone's going to continue having the ability to hunt and fish, but continuing to have, the necessary means in order to regulate our ecosystem to make sure that, Florida continues to thrive. So one looks at it from an individual perspective, right? It'll loosen also some of the regulations for fisheries, because if you see the regardless of homeland. It's kind of like a free-for-all approach to our ecosystem here. Yes.
Right now, do people require like a permit or something to fish and hunt?
Yes,
Okay.
you do. Yeah. That'll still continue.
Okay.
Hunt, you need
A license, you need a gun, but also you need licenses as well, or a bow, depending on, what your preferred method of hunting is. But again, for this one, the vote no is coming more from like a conservation lens, whereas the vote yes is more of like, a personal individual right, my rights, don't touch, etc. But so the sponsor of this one is the Florida legislator as well. Good. I hope y'all are learning something about our amendments. All right, so this one, not gonna lie, all the college students, all the young folks are like, whoa, Amendment 3, can't believe it's on the ballot. But this one's the adult personal use of marijuana. Can somebody read the summary for me? Yes.
Allows adults 21 years or older to possess, purchase, or use marijuana products and marijuana accessories for non-medical personal consumption by smoking, ingestion, or otherwise. Allows medical marijuana treatment centers and other state licensed entities to acquire, cultivate, possess, manufacture, sell, and distribute such products and accessories. Applies to the Florida law. Does not change or immunize violations of federal law. Establishes possession limits for personal use, allows consistent legislation, defines terms, provided effective date.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. A vote yes would expand our current law to legalize adult personal use of marijuana, which is 21 years of age or older. And then a vote no would reject legalizing adult personal use of marijuana and maintain current regulations, which is for medical use only. So the key words here is non-medical personal consumption, meaning recreationally, you can smoke if you want, without any repercussions. In terms of, the whole selling, purchasing, all that kind of stuff, it would come through like a dispensary, for example. That's where you would, purchase. It's a much more regulated approach to marijuana use. But there are some projections out there that it'll help increase revenue for the state, in addition to, helping keep less people from being incarcerated as well, for having medical, marijuana on them. 21 years of age, regardless of homeland too. So if you're visiting, you can smoke, it's fine. The thing is like you cannot go to the airport high, you cannot go to work, can't go to class. So this will go beyond, the conversation of here, and then how do we implement it in our classrooms, in the workplace, and that kind of stuff.
That make more problems because, now it's, and then you come to class, hi.
But that's, the step one, and this is what the gentleman was saying. He was like, well, if it doesn't pass now, what ends up happening? I'm like, we may never see this until there's another petition. So that's, I get it. I know where you're coming from. I have had 50 of these presentations to some extent. And I have a diverse group of folks, and they're like, but Monica, do you want every area? I'm like, well, I'm just sharing the facts with you. You take it to the ballot box. Yes.
So it's not legal right now?
No.
So in smoke shops or stuff like that, what do they sell then?
You gotta get a card. It's a medical card. Oh yes, or that, yeah, that too.
Sorry to interject too, but the vape shops that sell the THC, it's actually like a Delta 9 cannabinoid, which is actually synthetically derived from the CBD products.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So again, like it doesn't change federal law. This is a state thing, similar to what we see in California, in Colorado, Illinois, that has it, for recreational use at the state level. At the federal level, it continues to be illegal. That's where I'm like, don't go to the airport, under the influence and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
But you can get arrested if you're high?
Well, no.
Have it in the
No, if you have it on you, depending on the amount that you have, you can get arrested for that. There are many people
If you
that are,
smoke and then you go to class or to the airport, no, right?
I mean, someone may ask you, and they may ask you questions and stuff, and you could probably say, I need a lawyer. I don't know. But yeah, it's more about possession and having it on you. You know, there are many people, especially from, BIPOC minority groups, that have been stopped, have been incarcerated because of having, a small amount on them and stuff. So this would do away with all of that.
Wow, I'm shocked because I thought it was legal because I see everywhere people smoking. I mean, you're anywhere, and then
people love the thrill of
police is
it. They
around
love the
and they're
thrill,
like-
I guess, until you get caught,
Oh.
But yes. And this isn't my
they
area of
can
expertise. I'm just reading the amendment to you all, and what a vote yes is and what a vote no. I can't tell you about the strands and the delta and the this and the that, but, it's really mainly about recreational use instead of medical. Yes.
Just to piggyback on that, who can make you take a drug test? Is it only the police?
No, it could be your employer. You can consent. In order for you to get hired somewhere, they may ask you, to take a drug test and stuff.
Oh, but they would have to prior notify you. They can be on the spot, because she was saying
Well,
would they
can
arrest
get
you if you're
sneaky
high?
though. They can get sneaky, and you could get hired, and you'll sign off on something to be you'll randomly get drug tested, and you may not have read the fine print, and you already consented, and now you've got to do it. Folks get sneaky.
Yeah. No, I just meant when, she was saying that, can you get arrested if you're high? If someone walks up to you, not your employer, a police or something on the street and suspect you're high, can they just make you take a drug test? On the spot?
No. There's a procedural process and stuff. Yeah, but this one, again, it's mainly, instead of medical use, this is recreational. So, you can smoke, purchase, from these dispensaries and all that. Amendment 4, this one's become increasingly controversial. Excuse me. A lot of different groups for or against, abortion. A lot of ads, even on I was watching the football game with my dad. It's vote no, vote yes on this. It's everywhere. Can't wait for the election to be over. Okay, but anyway, so for this one is amendment to limit government interference with abortion. Can somebody read the summary for me?
I can read it.
Yes, thank you.
No law shall prohibit, penalize, delay, or restrict abortion before viability or when necessary to protect the patient's health as determined by the patient's healthcare provider. This amendment does not change the legislature's constitutional authority to require notification to a parent or guardian before a minor has an abortion.
Thank you so much. So a vote yes would stop government interference with abortion and nullify Florida's 6-week abortion ban. A vote no would keep Florida's current abortion ban in effect. So for those of you that did not know this, currently the state of Florida does have a 6-week abortion ban in effect. So for, folks in the room that, find out that they're pregnant 7-8 months and it was an unplanned pregnancy or it was from rape, incest, or whatever it may be, you've got to keep the baby in the state of Florida. Go ahead.
So the 6 week, does that count from the last day of your period or?
From that day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you supposed to lie, then it's later.
No, but but then again, so going back to what's given to us in the writing, big thing here is when necessary to protect the patient's health and as determined by the patient's healthcare provider. This is a medical physician, not a secretary at an office, not, it's somebody that's saying, hey, you've got to abort it. If not, your health is at risk. So there's a lot of, misinformation out there in terms of this particular amendment. There's a lot of faith-based groups as well that are vote no, this is terrible. We got to protect lives, that kind of stuff. And then there's strong arguments, for and against, abortion. It's really, gathering as much information as you can and where your values are and, you vote that way. A lot of folks are women deserve the right, to make decisions on their body. The government should not interfere with that. So that's important to flag. And also, there's a lot of misinformation about the notification to a parent. Again, it's in the writing. If you're a minor, your parent will be notified. That's not going to change. Because I even saw an ad that I'm like, this is totally wrong. So that's Amendment 4. Again, a vote yes is to nullify what we have, and then no is to keep the 6-week abortion ban that we have. Something else that I recently learned too is most abortions happen in the first trimester, exactly 93% of them. So very rarely do they happen in the third trimester or even second. Again, a lot of misinformation here, so I like to drop the facts. And then second to last, I'll kind of go through this one quickly because I only have 5 minutes, but does anyone want to quickly read this one? If not, I'll just summarize. Yeah.
Proposing an amendment to the state constitution to require an annual adjustment for inflation to the value of current or future homestead exemptions that apply solely to levies other than school district levies, and for which every person who has legal or equitable I might have skipped equitable title to real estate and maintains thereon the permanent residence of the owner or another person legally or naturally dependent upon the owner is eligible. My God. The amendment takes effect January 1st, 2025.
I know, and we're all educated folks here. Like, that's a lot of words,
On.
Like, what the heck does that? I was supposed to say another word. What the hell does that even mean? But anyway, so if you're a first-time home buyer in the state of Florida, you get a tax exemption. It's called homestead tax exemption. It's about $50,000. So if you purchase a home that is $300,000, if only homes were $30,000. What's wrong? I dropped a zero. My bad. So if you have a house that's $300,000, you'll pay taxes on the $250,000. So what this one would do is if the consumer price index increases with inflation, the adjustment of the property tax would be properly adjusted. If it doesn't impact anything, it'll stay the same. So folks that are for this one on a vote yes are mainly the homeowners that, want to pay less taxes on their home if inflation does arise. However, folks that are, asking folks to vote no are kind of like our municipalities that will get less money to help with policing, fire, our libraries and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like when one loses or one gains, the other one loses. That's the kind of conversations that are here on this one. Lastly, public campaign financing. Quick summary. Anyone want to read it? It's a short one.
I'll keep going. Proposing the repeal of the provision in the state constitution which requires public financing for campaigns of candidates for elective statewide office who agree to campaign spending limits.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention, this one came from the Florida legislature, 5 and 6. Just an FYI, 3 and 4 are the only ones that came from the people. In terms of public campaign financing, for those of you that did not know this, in the state of Florida, if someone's running for statewide office, they can tap into taxpayer dollars to run for office. This is helpful for people that may not have the money or come from like an affluent family that has a bunch of money to spend on your campaign. It allows folks to tap into this to run for office on statewide positions. You also have to agree to certain limits, as well as how much you're going to spend, for example, on every voter. It's like calculated. So it's not like you can just spend all the money you want. You have to agree to certain terms. So a vote yes on this one would remove public campaign financing, and a vote no would keep things as is. So like folks like myself, that I would never run for office, but if I would run for office for a statewide position and I don't have a lot of money backing me up, I would be able to tap into this. But if you don't, you don't. So again, this one came from the Florida legislature. Vote no is to keep things as is, and a vote yes would remove public campaign financing. Some of the folks that are against this particular amendment believe that if we do remove public campaign financing, candidates will be more focused on bigger dollars and not individual contributions of the people. I want you all, I know we're at time, but I would love for all of you to think about how you plan on voting. When, how will you get there? What time? Hopefully on campus. And lastly, what method of voting do y'all plan on using this year? Anyone wanna?
I'm going to do early voting.
Early, yay! And on campus, I hope.
Yes.
Yes, yay! Anyways, thank you all. True pleasure. It's a lot of info, but we did it.
Yeah, how many of you feel more informed to go and vote? Awesome. So the work is done, Monica. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. Just a reminder, TTR continues next week again. We're going to have a session on human rights. So we look forward to our last session next week. Thank you so much. Bye.